Curtis Andrew Burton was born in Washington, D.C. in 1962. He returned to the D.C. area in 1987 after growing up in Seattle, Washington, and Newtonville, Massachusetts. Burton is a graduate of the American Public University, where he received his bachelor degree in English with writing concentration. He is the author of two novels, Jacob's Letter 2019, an autobiographical work, and Bloom 2025, a comic piece. Burton lives in Rockville, Maryland, with his husband, David Gleekel. And in today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my joy, pleasure, excitement, and honor to have on the show today Curtis Andrew Burton. How are you doing today, Tony, as I like to call you?
I'm really good, Peter. I'm really happy that you found me and that you're having me on and that we're doing this interview. And I hope it reaches a lot of people who will hopefully be interested in my books.
Yeah, that's amazing, actually. Great to find you, like we did find other people. Quite interesting. And as we're going to keep
Right.
finding more people to get featured
Uh-huh.
on the show to showcase their work of literature, quite amazingly and quite great. So it's really beautiful that we are here to sit down across
Uh-huh.
internet, across continents to have this amazing conversation around your books. Thank you very much for coming on. Saint Curtis, we are going to get into what inspired you to write Bloom, but then you've been a writer now for the past 12 years and you've published other books even aside from Bloom. And I wanted to ask you, what is your first creative spark as a writer? What is that thing that fuels you in to write? And also, why did you choose this title for your book? If you can run us through the making, the foundation of your creative process, and the making of this book, how it come to life and how it come to be, that would really be great.
Well, as I say, I have written two books. One
Yeah.
is called Jacob's Letters, and of course, the one we're going to focus on is Bloom.
Mm,
The first one, I had it planned out. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew the people in because it's autobiographical. I had the letters that we can talk about a little later
yeah.
that I built the book around. So all that was laid out. I had the time to write it because I wasn't working. So I followed my map, so to speak, until eventually it got published. With Bloom, it came as a total surprise. It was after a long period where I didn't write, where I couldn't really come up with any ideas. And then one day, I was writing. I write 3 pages every morning of um, free association, and my mind happened to wander to this book by Andrew Sullivan about homosexuality,
Oh,
and he talks about an academic who's obese. He has an epiphany one day, and he realizes that in order to really better his life, he has to come out of the closet. So he does, and his life is better as a result. And I thought, you could do something about, you could do
yeah.
something like that. That sounds like a really good premise for a novel.
Mm,
And right at that point, this whole download of this book just came, my imagination just kind of went wild. And the whole book just came to me piece by piece over about a period of 12 hours. I got the plot, I got the settings. I even knew what music people were going to listen to while they were having sex. That's
mm,
how that's how definitive it was. So
wow.
by the time it was done, I had a set of blueprints
Mm,
to write Bloom, and I went with that. It took 14 weeks. It was
oh,
a lot of
wow.
fun doing it, and the first one took 9 months, but this one took 14 weeks.
Wow.
And it was something I really didn't have a choice but to do it. It just came to me to do it, and it really turned out. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Bloom was a name that I had found working on another project, trying to develop another project that didn't come to fruition,
Uh,
and I like the name. And considering what Bloom is trying to do in the book, which he's trying to bloom, I thought that it was a totally appropriate name for the book and his name.
mm, That I must say, it's an amazing introduction into writing. That's a lovely storyline you've told us. Quite interesting how Bloom came to be and how it come alive. Thank you
Uh-huh.
very much for
Uh-huh.
sharing with us.
Uh-huh.
And Tony, there is a compelling mix of personal transformation and interpersonal drama in Bloom. I'm not quite sure if you noticed that as a writer, but I really do, especially with Tabitha and Cole. Now, how
Right.
did you approach writing those intense relationship dynamics in the book?
Well, um, while I am a student of writing,
Hmm.
I hadn't the first book I wrote was really almost nonfiction because I knew the
Hmm.
characters. I didn't really have to develop them too much. But this
Yeah.
time, the characters came to me and they told me about themselves. And they told me what they liked, what they didn't like, what their way of looking at life was. And as I say, it kind of came together. It's as if the whole thing was written for me.
Yeah.
I had to develop Cole a little bit into being more of a I don't want to say stereotypical black man, but
Hmm.
um, something to that effect.
Yeah.
And as far as Tabitha, and I didn't know her name. Part of what happened in this download is that I got names, and I don't know anybody. I don't know a Tabitha. I don't know anybody named Cole. So
Hmm.
they just really kind of came to me as part of this fully formed
Wow.
download, and
Wow.
it just worked out where they communicated with me, the characters communicated with me, and I pretty much took down what they said. I ended up editing stuff around,
Mm,
but the characters told me what how they're going to work with each other and approach each other.
mm. That's an amazing style you've utilized there, really. Quite interesting and quite awesome. Thank you very
Uh-huh.
much for sharing.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Sure. Hmm.
Again, Tabitha Gold, I'm not quite sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is such a fascinating character to me. Powerful, obsessive, and almost symbolic in some ways. Now, was she inspired, if in any way, by a real type of person, or did she just evolve entirely from your imagination as a writer?
I think she was. I knew a girl in high school who had
Yeah.
some of the attributes of Tabitha, but
Wow.
I really didn't realize I was writing about her until after I'd finished it. So
Wow.
I'm hoping she doesn't sue me or anything, because I didn't make her out to be a bad person and she doesn't do bad things necessarily. But
Oh.
Tabitha was pretty much from my imagination. Um,
Mm,
I knew that she was, I knew what she looked like. I knew she was a redhead. I knew that
mm,
she was totally obsessed with this cartoon character.
wow.
And I knew she was a powerful attorney. I think if there's a movie made of this book, I
Wow.
think the screenwriter is going to have a lot of fun with her character because
Mm,
I just kind of fleshed her out a bit.
yeah.
But she's the kind of attorney that I believe would, if you got a CEO of a company on the witness stand, that she would just make the guy squirm
Mm,
and really struggle just to have to come up with responses.
wow.
She's pretty powerful, but she's got this obsession that's very, plus she has an obsession with with Bloom, and they've been together for a long time, and she
Mm,
dominates him,
mm,
and she dominates him in bed, she dominates him in food. That's what the relationship is based on. Um, so it was pretty much well fleshed out for the most part, but it was a lot of fun writing about her because it really came from my head. So,
that's really interesting to know, really. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Quite amazing.
mhm.
And I wanted to ask you, because in Jacob's letter, the exchanges between Jacob and Nate feels incredibly intimate, feels very authentic, and extremely rooted in their historical moment. Now, did you draw inspiration from real letters, or archival material from that era when crafting their correspondence? I'm just, curiosity just wouldn't allow me.
Okay, let me explain. Uh, Jacob was a real person. He was someone I
Oh,
knew in high school. We had a close in high school.
oh,
Then he went out to California and he was having drug problems before he left. And he just got more and more involved with drugs while he was out there
wow.
until he had a breakdown and ultimately had to go into recovery from his drug situation. So,
Mm,
Brett, the letters are real. Um, I kept all the ones he sent me. And his sister, after he died, his sister sent me all the ones that I had sent Jacob. So when she sent them back, I had the whole correspondence, all 61 letters that I could work from. I used about half.
mm,
And I'm fortunate that Jacob was comfortable enough about himself
wow.
that he could put himself into these letters and reach out for help and say things like, you're my lifeline and to sanity and things of that nature.
Mm,
Um, we just really we did what we each of us does best. We write. He said he that writing for him is like breathing. That's what he said.
wow.
And I kind of feel the same way. So we were really a good match. We had about a 3-year writing relationship
Mm,
before he died. And I've still got the letters. I've got all of them, and I'll always treasure them. But I'm lucky to have it work out the way it did because I knew the story,
mm,
and I took the letters and built the story around the letters.
wow.
So it all makes sense between what was going on in my life at the time. This was 1984 to 1987, which were the years that AIDS was building up in this country,
Wow.
and I was going through my first period as a gay man and working on coming out and being self-identified as gay, things like
Mm,
that. At the same time, Jacob was working on a drug situation. So
mm,
we kind of compared notes between what he was going through and what I was going through. We would help each other. I would say, hey, why don't you try this? He would say, why don't you try this?
wow.
And it worked out really well. Fortunately, well, I won't get into it too much, but he did pass away,
Oh,
which ended the relationship. Um, but I'm really lucky that it happened, and I'm lucky that he was able to put himself into his letters and have it come out so well.
mm. That's such a story you've told. That is such an experience you've experienced. Quite a huge one, really, with Jacob's letter. Thank you very
Hmm.
much for sharing with us.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And again, some part, or I would say, yeah, some part, or maybe I'll say whole part though. But then the novel captures core life during a time of fear and stigma. How did you balance personal storytelling with the weight of historical context, especially during the AIDS crisis? And also, friendship, not just romance, is at the heart of Jacob's letter, which I think this is one of the features that make it to be quite exceptional and quite distinctive in feature. Now, I wanted to ask you, why was it important for you to focus on that kind of queer connection in some ways?
Well, that's kind of a hard question to answer.
I do know.
Um, I just I just really feel compelled to tell the story. I wanted, of course, to write something, and I wanted to have some sort of memory that people could go to and say, "Well, this occurred." But I
Yeah.
wanted to get it out into the world.
Mm,
I also, I think, wanted to say that two men can be in love with each other and not have it be sexual. Um, we would call in America a bromance, a romance between brothers. And I think that there's a certain fearlessness that goes on between the two of them that really played out well. As far as the AIDS crisis, um, it was just kind of on the perimeter, but there were already things taking place in my world that were having an impact. For example,
mm,
I talk about in the book. when the AIDS test is introduced in about 1986, 87,
Yeah.
um, this clinic I would go to where I had the test done, they
Mm.
would only give out their results on a Saturday morning. Everybody who'd been tested that week had to go to the clinic Saturday morning. So you had this whole waiting room of gay men of all different ages and sizes, and they would listen for the birth dates because they're all anonymous. They couldn't call them by their names. So you hear things like, 5/31/55 or 4/20/67 or 5/9/62, which is my
Yeah.
birthday. Um, it was just kind of a strange, it sounded like a bingo game that they were playing. And they, their lives were at stake, really, to figure out whether they're going to be to have it or not,
Yeah.
and to have to deal with that. Some people got great news, some people got horrible news.
Yeah.
But it was all that was really what captured it for me, what the AIDS crisis was like, being in that room with all these sexually active men of all different ages, um, waiting to get their test results. So and of course I lost people during the AIDS crisis, not a whole lot, but it did have an impact on me, as I thought about it and as I wrote about it, as to what that would be about.
Mm. Wow. That is really an amazing one, really. This is such an interesting story you've told. Quite interesting, quite pulling in some ways. And
Mm.
I really enjoy Jacob's letter and the whole of it, the connection together with Nate and others. Now, I wanted to ask you, what kind of feedback have you gotten so far since the publication of this book? I know you might have gotten quite a lot, but then if there is a particular feedback that stay with you, that is so dear to your heart, that you can remember that somebody once said this about the book, and I am so excited about that. And it's such a satisfying one. If there's any feedback of such nature that you love to share with us, that would be great.
Well, what I found is interesting, which is different from the first book with Bloom,
Yeah.
um, it's a little like people, they see themselves in the book and in the characters.
Characters.
If they tend to be a serious person,
Mm,
they see it as a serious work. If they tend to be a humorous or lighthearted person, they'll
mm,
see the humor in the book, which is what I intended. I intended it to be a funny book. So that really makes me happy when people really laugh at certain scenes or think certain scenes are funny. But there is enough in it that's serious that people who are sensitive to that kind of thing respond to that. So
mm,
between the Amazon and Goodreads reviews, I've gotten a pretty good cross section of what people feel about it. I had a review in the Kirkus magazine, which is an American publication, that didn't like it. They said it was too chaotic. They didn't understand the humor. But I just got a book review from what's connected with Publishers Weekly that really liked it. And so it really kind of goes back and forth. It really depends on the person and what they see in a book. I don't know whether that's true. I guess that's true of a lot of books, but this book in particular is really
mm,
surprising that people, you know, they get it, but they don't get it. But the thing about it is, they everybody's gets something from it. They're not bored by
mm.
it. They're they're into it,
Wow.
and that's how I know I've done my job. That I've kept
Wow.
them interested, that I'm keeping them entertained
Mm,
and involved, and that they want to know how it turns out, that they want to follow the characters,
mm,
and how it's paced and everything.
mm,
So I guess it's not quite surprising, but I'm pleasantly surprised
mm.
by the differing views of it. But generally it's all positive. People are giving me 4 and 5 stars for the book, and people enjoy the experience generally.
That is really an amazing feedback, really. I know sometimes all of this beautiful feedback can be quite satisfying in nature. It's like it's giving evidence that yeah, you've done a great job. It's quite
Yeah.
impressive and it's really worthwhile. Now, just apart from the books we've mentioned so far, do you have any other works that you are currently working on, if in some ways?
Um, I'm working on something that's coming together very slowly.
Mm,
It's a bit of a prequel to Bloom. I take the character of Cole, who's a middle-aged black man who grew up in the South in the early 70s, and what makes him feel the way that he does? How does he get from how he feels going through his life to, I don't want to give it away, to how he feels at the end of Bloom? What were the steps? What were the processes?
mm,
So I'm thinking about doing a man's life, covering a man's life, how he grew up, where he grew up, people he
mm,
associated with, the church he went to, which indicates a lot of how he feels. It has an
yeah,
impact on a lot of how he feels.
yeah,
Um, he was in the military. He made his fortune in an early age. And there's a lot of things I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be those things. I
mm,
don't know what it's like to be on the down low, which is basically having sex with men and keeping up this facade of straight marriage and having kids and so forth. I
mm,
don't know what that's like. The only thing I have in common with it is that I'm a gay man that grew up during the 1970s in the United States. That's
mm,
about all I have in common. But Cole grew up in the South, and the South has a whole way of looking at things and way of growing up that I didn't have.
mm.
And I'm just going to have to learn about these things or let them come to me. I'm going to have to do a lot of research.
Wow.
And if I can see that it's going to work out, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I've been looking into, I drew up a questionnaire for Southern Black men who are in their 60s to
Mm,
talk about what their experience is like. I don't know how to post it. I mean, I've looked into Reddit
mm,
and to see if I can post some kind of link there. But if I can get people to fill out this application, fill out this form, or be
wow.
interviewed, that would give me some kind of insight as to what it was
Absolutely.
like. And I could apply that to Cole's life,
Mm,
and that would help me get started on the road to figuring out everything else.
mm,
So it's coming together very slowly,
wow.
but it's starting to gestate. It's like having it. It's in a petri dish right now,
Oh, wow.
and I'm looking at it grow very slowly. And hopefully, I'll end up with a book. And it's probably going to take me a few years.
Mm,
It'll probably take me about, let's say, at least 5 or 7 years to really come up with something
wow.
I'm happy with. And I think that this time, I should say that I'm a self-published author.
Okay.
I don't have a formal publishing company behind me.
Mm,
So I've had to make the investment of printing it and promoting it and all these other kinds of things.
mm,
I think this time, this particular book, I would go to an actual publisher and have them publish it because it would need to have more of a bigger audience as to
yeah.
how do you reach a
Yeah.
bigger audience with a book like this that's accessible to more people, particularly
Yeah.
the black people. Um, I don't have the means to do that, but I think if the publishing company got behind it and was able to get it out there,
Yeah.
I think it would do really well because it's got some strong messages in it, and
Mm,
I could do pretty well financially. So, which is
mm.
not why I'm a writer, but it's a nice little byproduct if I can make some money from it. So I think as any writer will tell you.
That's such an interesting responses you've given to these lovely questions that I've created for we're talking about Bloom really. Just in case we have some viewers who are currently watching this interview and would love to get a copy of Bloom, on what platform is it available on for purchase?
Uh, the best thing to do is to go to my website, which is curtisandrewburton.com, all one word, Curtis Andrew Burton.
Mm,
And both my books are there. They both have reviews.
wow.
They're both linked up to Amazon and to Barnes and Noble, and um, I think a third place. but it has an author profile there and that kind of thing. But that's the quickest way to get to the book. It'll link right up to Amazon, and they can purchase the book, or they can purchase the Kindle from there. So that's the best way for people to access it.
That's an interesting one, really. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Andrew Burton Bloom directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles on his website and also on other platforms. I also left a link to Tony's social media pages for possible followings.
Yes, I do have a Facebook page, so I people can go to that as well and see what the latest of what ongoing stuff is and who's following me and those kinds of things.
That's great. So thank you very much for joining me today to talk about your impressively written books. Quite interesting and quite awesome. I'm very great and excited to have had this conversation with you.
Well, I'm Peter. I'm really glad I was able to participate, and you're a wonderful interviewer. And I think that I hope that people watch this and get a sense of me and get a sense of my
Mm,
books, and will turn out for it and buy a copy.
Yeah,
There we go.
great. Absolutely.